It was late afternoon, the kind of golden dusk where the sun stretches long shadows across the road and paints the sky with orange fire. Daniel Miller, a 26-year-old junior mechanic who had been working at a prestigious auto repair shop owned by the wealthy businessman Richard Hayes, found himself stuck on the side of a nearly deserted road. His old sedan, battered by years of service, had finally given up on him. The engine coughed, sputtered, and then went completely silent. He sat behind the wheel, frustrated, tapping the steering wheel while muttering under his breath. He had just finished a long day at work, trying to meet the shop's deadlines, and was looking forward to a quiet evening. But fate had other plans for him. As he stepped out of the car, the air felt heavy with the scent of the earth after a light drizzle. He popped the hood and stared at the mess inside. Being a mechanic, he should have been able to fix his own car, but without tools and spare parts, he was almost helpless. He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck, wondering if he should call a tow truck. Just then, he heard the faint sound of tires crunching gravel. He looked up and saw a sleek black SUV slowing down as it approached him. Out stepped a young woman, no older than 22, dressed in casual jeans and a white blouse, her long dark hair falling in waves around her shoulders. She looked out of place on this empty road, as though she belonged to a world of comfort far removed from dusty roadsides and broken-down cars. "Hey, do you need help?" she asked, her voice carrying warmth and concern. Daniel blinked, momentarily taken aback. He wasn't used to strangers stopping, much less someone who looked like her. Yeah," he said awkwardly. "Car broke down. Not sure I can get it running without tools." She walked closer, peering into the engine with curiosity. "I don't know much about cars," she admitted with a smile, "but maybe I can give you a ride somewhere." Daniel hesitated. He didn't want to impose, but at the same time, he knew this road didn't get much traffic. His phone battery was dead too, which added to his dilemma. "I'd really appreciate that," he finally said, offering a grateful nod. She smiled again, and for the first time that evening, Daniel felt a strange ease, as though the burden of his troubles had momentarily lifted. They got into her SUV, and as they drove, she asked questions about him, where he worked, what he did. He answered honestly, telling her about his job as a mechanic at Hayes Auto, about how he loved working on cars even though the pay wasn't much, and how he was just trying to save up for a better future. She listened intently, her eyes occasionally glancing at him as though she were studying him. "You sound like you care a lot about your work," she said softly. "Not many people your age have that kind of dedication." Daniel chuckled, a little embarrassed. "Well, cars don't judge you. They just need patience. I like that." She laughed lightly, a sound that filled the car with warmth. "I'm Emily," she introduced herself suddenly. Emily Hayes. The name didn't register with him at first. He simply nodded and said, "Daniel." But later, as the name echoed in his mind, something tickled at the back of his thoughts. Hayes. Where had he heard that name before? He brushed it off, not realizing yet the significance of what she had said. She dropped him off near a small diner where he could call for assistance. As he was about to thank her, she reached into her purse and handed him a business card. "Just in case you ever need help," she said. "Or maybe just someone to talk to." Her eyes lingered on his a little longer than necessary before she smiled and drove off. That night, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about her. Something about her presence, the way she listened, the kindness in her voice, it stayed with him. The next day, he returned to work at Hayes Auto, where the atmosphere was tense as usual. Richard Hayes, his boss, was known for being strict, demanding, and intimidating. He ran the shop like a general commanding soldiers, and Daniel often felt like just another cog in the machine. But he didn't complain. Work was work, and he was grateful to have it. Later that afternoon, Richard came into the shop, his expression serious as always. But this time, something unusual happened. A young woman walked in behind him, her eyes scanning the room curiously. Daniel froze when he saw her. It was Emily. She was his boss's sister. The realization hit him like a bolt of lightning. He felt his heart race, remembering every word they had exchanged, every smile she had given him. Emily's eyes lit up when they met his, and she smiled as though seeing an old friend. Richard, however, didn't notice their silent exchange. "This is my sister, Emily," he announced to the staff. "She's visiting for a while. Treat her with respect." Daniel swallowed hard, trying to act normal, but inside, panic and excitement battled for dominance. Emily didn't reveal that they had already met. She simply watched him with quiet amusement, as though enjoying the secret they shared. Over the next few days, Emily visited the shop frequently, sometimes bringing lunch for her brother, sometimes just hanging around. She always found a way to strike up conversations with Daniel, often under the guise of asking about cars or pretending to need help with something. Daniel tried to keep things professional, but the pull between them was undeniable. He admired her intelligence, her kindness, and the way she seemed genuinely interested in him, not just as a mechanic but as a person. One evening, when most of the workers had left, Emily lingered behind. She walked over to Daniel as he wiped grease off his hands. "You didn't tell me you worked for my brother," she teased, raising an eyebrow. Daniel laughed nervously. "You didn't tell me your last name meant Hayes Otto." She grinned. "Fair enough." There was a pause, a silence filled with unspoken words. "I'm glad we met that night," she finally said, her voice soft. "So am I," Daniel replied, almost in a whisper. Days turned into weeks, and their connection deepened. They would talk for hours whenever they found a chance, sharing stories, dreams, and fears. Daniel discovered that Emily wasn't the spoiled, privileged girl he had imagined a rich man's sister would be. She was grounded, compassionate, and had a sense of humor that made even the hardest days feel lighter. She, in turn, admired Daniel's resilience, his honesty, and his quiet strength. But their growing closeness didn't go unnoticed. Richard, ever protective of his sister, began to sense something. One evening, he called Daniel into his office. "You've been working hard," Richard said, his voice low and commanding. "But I need to make one thing clear, my sister is off limits. She deserves someone of her own standing, not an employee." Daniel felt a pang of humiliation and anger, but he kept his composure. "Understood, sir," he said, though his heart ached. He knew what Richard was implying. He wasn't worthy. Emily, however, had other plans. When she learned what her brother had said, she confronted him fiercely. "You don't get to decide who I care about," she told Richard. "Daniel is more of a man than half the people you do business with." Her words shook Richard, but his pride kept him from admitting it. The tension grew, but so did Daniel and Emily's bond. Their love blossomed quietly, in stolen moments and secret conversations, until one day, fate forced everything into the open. A major client's car had broken down on the road, and Richard entrusted Daniel with handling it. Emily insisted on accompanying him, despite her brother's protests. On that road, working together as they had once unknowingly met, they proved not only their skills but also their partnership. When they returned, Richard saw them laughing together, their connection undeniable. At first, anger flared in him, but then he saw something else. Happiness in his sister's eyes, a happiness he hadn't seen in years. Slowly, reluctantly, he began to realize that perhaps Daniel was not just another employee. Perhaps he was the one person who could truly care for Emily. The road that had once stranded Daniel became the road that led him to the love of his life. The broken car that had once frustrated him became the spark that ignited a story of fate, love, and defiance. And as Emily stood by his side, holding his hand, Daniel realized that sometimes, life's breakdowns are just detours to something greater.